it's slightly different than that? Like, what if he's trying to help us become the type of people that the law emanates from?
You're listening to Hyperlink, a podcast journey. Today, we're asking, what does do not murder really mean in the kingdom? Jesus goes beyond action and exposes the heart, anger, insults, and contempt. This isn't about breaking a rule, it's about breaking relationships with others, with God, and with yourself. This is Raca, Rage, and the Road to Reconciliation.
I am so excited for this episode, but before we dive into the content, really, we're going to do a quick recap of the last few episodes because, as I say, the Sermon on the Mount, it really is one linear thought. And so we really need to remember what we've been studying, right? So we had the hashtag blessed, right? Jesus is flipping the world's definition of what it means to be blessed. He's changing it all. He's shifting dynamics. He's shifting paradigms, and he's really showing us like what it means to be blessed. It's an invitation to the values of heaven. That's really what it is. It's an invitation to the values of heaven, mercy and longing for justice and righteousness, even in the midst of persecution. And then we have Jesus coming next, right? With the Sermon on the Mount, where we've talked about we are the sermon. And Jesus looks at his followers and says, you are the salt. You are the light. You are the light. You are the salt of the earth. And we start to get identity poured into us, but we realize that these words have so much more weight than symbolism. They literally symbolize that we are his kingdom work in this earth now. We are to be his light now. You are that. And then we had right here, we had right theology, right action. And we talked about how Jesus didn't come to really cancel the Old Testament, but to complete and embody it, right? To embody it. And every line of Torah really does matter. But Jesus lives out on how he shows us how to walk it out. We walk it out. We walk it. He shows us how to walk it out, right? This isn't, law versus grace. It's about being people whose theology leads to real world obedience. So next, what's the next question? What's the next question? If you're going through all that, you're like, what's the next question for us? What makes sense for Jesus to go to next? He's on the mountain, and we talked about he went on the mountain on purpose. It's to show us a direct relationship to Moses, the lawgiver for Israel. Now Jesus is on a mountain, and he talks about the Beatitudes, tells us we're the salt. He says, I've come to fulfill the law. So what's next? What's obviously next is some law, right? That's what we assume, right? And so let's read Matthew 5:21 and 22. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder. And whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. And whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. Now, are these laws that Jesus is going through? Are these commandments? It's an important kind of notice here is this. These are not laws. These are not commandments. These are actually examples. What Jesus is going through is examples. These are illustrations. This is not Jesus adding new law. When you hear this, this is not Jesus adding new law. This is Jesus illustrating the heart of the law, not teaching us what to do, but how to live. We ask this a lot at Hyperlink, right? We say, is it the what versus the how? How to think or what to think, right? Right. This is about right theology, and that right theology will show you how to live right actions. So what is Jesus doing with talking about murder and teaching how to live in his new kingdom? He starts with murder. He's like, we're going to start with the big one, the 187 on an undercover. We're going to talk about murder. We're talking about murder. We're talking about murder. Murder. Jesus takes do not murder. It's one of the 10 commandments. It's number 6 if you don't know. But they didn't call them 10 commandments, right? Like the Israelites did not call them 10 commandments. They were more like 10 axioms. They understood them as 10 truths of the world. So he's really saying, you want to know one of the big 10 truths of the world? Do not murder. You understand that? You've heard it say, do not murder. This is the truth of the world. Do not murder. But I say, if you have anger in your heart against your brother, you get judgment. Ooh. Insult and you get judgment. Ooh, by the council. Ooh. What is that? We're going to dive into it. And he says, and if you call him a fool, you get hellfire. What? So is Jesus upping the ante? No, our God doesn't change. So he's not upping the ante. Not at all. He is showing us what do not murder looks like when we live it out in our everyday life. That's what he's going to do. That's what he's starting to talk about. Is when he goes through the rest of these, you have anger, you have lust, you have divorce and oaths and retaliation and loving your enemies. He's showing us what some of these rules, some of these truths, some of these commandments, some of these things, some of the law they've heard of old, what they've heard, and he's showing us what it looks like to be lived out in their society today, what it looks like to be lived out then, to be lived out now. He's showing us what it looks like to be lived out. He's not upping the ante. He's showing us what it was always meant to do, to get at the heart and to change how we live. So like in our modern Christian worldview, what is he talking about? What does that look like? It's the phrase we hear sometimes, the abundant life. The abundant life. Jesus says, the enemy has come to kill, steal, and destroy. But I, being Jesus, has come to give life and life abundantly. Jesus here in Matthew 5 is starting to show us what it looks like to live in that abundant life. He started with the Beatitudes, which is the hashtag blessed, but not like that, right? Like it's a little different than what we might think. It's still an abundant life. And so Jesus is sitting here and he's starting to shift their worldview. He's starting to shift what it looks like. This is the abundant life. You want to live, you want to truly live in everything God has for you here on this earth. You want to truly live like that? This is how. As we move in, it gets deeper and more practical, actually. It gets more and more practical. So don't tell me Jesus wasn't a practical teacher. He taught very practically, and we're going to dive into some of that. It's going to be so stinking good. So let's look at this, right? What is the order? What is the order that Jesus kind of gives us? It says, you've heard it said, do not murder, but I say don't have anger. And then he talks about insulting, and then he talks about saying, you fool. Like, what are we doing here? We started with murder, and we went down to anger, and then insults, and then a little insult that barely means anything anymore. What is Jesus doing? What are the people here? Like, does this even make sense? Is Jesus just kind of having a stroke? No. Jesus always makes sense. If we don't understand it, we should study a little bit more, but Jesus always makes sense. And so a good question, I guess, to ask really is, at this point is, why? Why this? Is it keeping the law? Why is Jesus doing this? Is he trying to help us keep the law better? But we can't keep it from birth. We know that. We're always going to all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So what is Jesus doing? What if it's slightly different than that? Like, what if he's trying to help us become the type of people that the law emanates from? That it flows naturally out of our hearts, out of our lives. What if he's trying to help us become the salt and the light? What if? This was really the chief mistake of the Pharisees, right? Like, they enforced the law and they put burdens on people and made the law larger and more, and they kept building perimeters around the law, but they never helped people become the type of people that the law emanates from. They just made check boxes. So what's anger's primary focus? Have you thought about that? Like, what is anger's in your life, in my life? What is anger's primary function? Really, what is the function of it? Why do we get angry? What causes us to get angry? What is the function of anger? Think about that. Its primary function is to let you know that someone else or something else has obstructed your will, your desires. Anger is an emotion. It is not a sin. I'm saying that anger is not a sin. It's more of a warning. It's the light coming on, telling you you need to change the oil in your car because something bad could happen if you don't. It's more of a warning than a warning sign saying, "Hey, stop, slow down." But when we act on it, or should I say, when we act in it, it causes us to want to remove that which obstructs our own will. This is why people hate God, get mad at God, because God will at some point obstruct your will, which is why we have to be people who love Him and submit to Him. But God will at some point obstruct your will. He's going to do it. This is why people get mad at Christians, especially Christians who speak the truth, whether they do it in love or not, because the truth will obstruct your will at times, because you will not always living in the truth. I am not always living in the truth. So this is why people can get mad and start to get angry and boil up with anger at Christians or at God. This is why the world as a whole and has wants to, and the academics want to, not all academics, by the way, when I say that, I just mean it as a whole kind of concept. But this is why they have said there is no God, like Nietzsche in them. There is no. Why? Because God obstructs their will. So I hate God, and eventually I think myself to a place where there is no God. And if there is a God, He hates me. So I'm justified to hate God. This is the world we live in. You're either justified to hate Christians and God because they hate you, or you don't believe there's a God at all anyway. So it doesn't matter, and you can hate Christians and God even though you don't believe in them anyway. And this is how we get here. This is how we get here, is we have our will and somebody and something obstructs our will. And I said it, anger is not a sin, right? Ephesians 4:26 says, be angry, but don't sin. So anger is not a sin. The harming of others, the belittling of others, the hatred of others, letting it fester in your heart, that's where the sin starts to happen. The sin, again, what is righteousness? It is relating well. We call it right relations, right? And if you're not relating well with God, you're not relating well with people, you're missing the mark. You're in there's sin somewhere, somehow, something. And anger is not does not anger doesn't force you to relate poorly to God or relate poorly to people. Anger is the warning sign. And if you live in that anger and you let that anger rise up and start to control you, then now you are relating poorly to God and poorly to people. And we don't need to go any further than Genesis chapter 4 to look at a story that explains it so well. Cain harbored hatred, contempt for his brother in his heart. He was selfish. He felt he was wronged. He lived in a lack mindset. There wasn't enough blessing to go around. He was oppressed by God, oppressed by his brother. He looked at the world critically. He criticized everything. Everything was wrong. So what did he do? He acted on that anger, on that frustration, on that critique. Remember what God said to him, though? He said, sin is crouching. It wants to devour, but you can overrule it. You can overcome it. You can. It's crouching. He was angry, but it was crouching. It wasn't there yet. And then he lived in it. He let it stay in his heart. And it produced bitterness and hatred to his brother. We see this in our world in so many ways. The anger I have against you because you think different than I think. The anger we have against a group because they did something years ago, thousands, hundreds of years ago. We harbor anger against them. The anger we have against a people group sometimes, as a culture, the anger we have because they obstruct our will, because they seem to have oppressed us. See, this is the culture we live in. It's a culture of Cain. It's a culture of the spirit of Cain, where we really look at the world critically, and then we begin to hate those who have more or seem to be doing better than us for whatever reason. And God told Cain, If you do well, will it not go well for you? But here, Cain harbored the hatred and the anger. And instead of doing well, he ended up doing even worse. And what happened next is he killed his brother. People see that anything that obstructs their will, anything that obstructs their will is an oppressor. That is the society. That is what we live in. Anything that obstructs their will, it seems to be oppressing them, keeping them down. When sometimes things that obstruct your will, i.e., God, sometimes it's to actually protect you and keep you safe. I drive a car, and when I drive on a bridge over a lake or a river, there are guardrail rails on either side. Why? To keep me from driving my car off of the bridge into a watery grave, right? There are lines on the road as I drive. There are lines. And what do these lines do? These lines let me know that if I drive here, all the cars on this side are going to be going the same way I'm going. But without the lines, I could be riding on the other side of the road, going head on into other traffic that might kill me. There's a speed limit posted for my safety and the safety of other people. There are limits and parameters around everything we do that slightly or a lot obstruct our will. But yet, when it comes to God, or when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to specific things, we decide as a society that that is a bad parameter because my will is better than that. And we know. What if I want to drive my car 120 miles an hour? Who should be able to stop me? What if I want to drive on the opposite side of the road? Who should be able to stop me? It's my will. Why are you obstructing my will? I can get angry at that. That's what road rage is half the time. It's people getting angry at someone obstructing their will because they want to get somewhere and there's traffic or the lights or the blah, blah, blah. And things, they get cut off. They get mad because I was supposed to be there. You got cut off. I'm in front of blah, blah, blah. Obstruction of will is huge. But listen, guys, hear this out. Not everything that obstructs your will is oppressing you. Sometimes that very thing that obstructs your will is giving you life. As a parent, I obstruct my child's will all the time. But it's not because I don't love them. It's the exact opposite. It's because I love them very much. I put parameters around certain things they can even look at on their iPads. I love them. And we saw Cain kill Abel because his will was obstructed. His desires were obstructed. So what does this anger in our hearts ultimately do? If you let it fester, it breaks your relationship with God, it breaks your relationship with man, and it breaks your relationship with yourself. And we can see that in Cain's story. Like I said, we saw Cain. What did he do? He killed Abel. Relationship with others, severed, broken. He lied to God. I don't know where my brother is. Relationship with God, broken, severed. And what did he do? He refused to be who he was supposed to be. He lost relationship with himself. Am I my brother's keeper? Yeah, you were. Broke relationship with himself, broke relationship with God, killed his brother, broke relationship with his brother. So what does anger do? We see the fruit of it in Cain, the fruit of it in our society, how it breaks your relationships. But what it really does as well is it devalues the other person. If I get cut off in traffic and I get so angry, I'm ready to road rage out, I'm saying my will is more important than their will. Thus, I am more important than them. That is what kings have done for millennia. My will is most important. If you don't chop off the head, my will is more important. That's what Lamech talked about. Like, someone hurt me, so I cut his head, so I killed him. What? Later on in Genesis chapter 4, if you're curious. What? He wrote a limerick, he wrote a song about it. Why? Because he could. Because anger will fester like that, and to the point where no one should obstruct my will because see everybody else as less valuable than me. Now, we don't think that way, and we don't want to think that way. We don't want to be confronted with the truth that our anger really does say that, but That's what it's saying, is that my will, my thoughts, my ways, my ideologies are better than yours. And so when I get so angry with you and I move in that anger, it's because I am forcing my will upon you. Mm, not even God forces his will upon us. Then next it says that if you insult, what happens? You can, woohoo, if you insult, whoever says to his brother an insult, this word for insult is Raca. Raca. I don't say the Hebrew well, I'm sorry, but it's Raca. To express contempt for someone, to mark them as contemptible. Ooh. It may be an onomatopoeia, some Hebrew scholars think, right? It's could be derived from the sound you make when you hock a loogie. Oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm sorry for those listeners only. But yes, racha. So when you hock a loogie, to spit it at someone. What is that saying again? It's denoting I'm better than you. I have more value than you. My opinion is higher than your opinion. You were just the worst. For like the best case of this one is you're not even worth consideration. Like you're just small. You're a peon. It doesn't really matter what you think. This is kind of what this is. This is an insult. Like, Raca. Like, it doesn't matter what you think. So this is like, it reminds me of this. Is Kevin from Home Alone, right? You're such a disease, Kevin. Look what you did, you little jerk. And the family was picking on Kevin, and I mean, truly, they loved him. Mostly, at least, they loved him. They didn't show it well, but they truly did. They weren't trying to really harm him, but they just didn't value. No ill will, really. They just didn't value him. And what happened is no matter what their intent was, no matter how where their hearts was, they spoke these words out. And what happened is it actually severed a social bond, and that's why it's called Home Alone. He was even mad at his mom. Everybody, they all left him. They didn't even remember him. Pushes someone away, it breaks a social bond. That is what this does, right? That is exactly what this is talking about. So anger can stay in your heart unseen, right? You can be angry and no one can know. But when you start to speak out things like you little jerk, look what you did. You're such a disease, Kevin. The next thing you know, everyone hears it. But what you're inviting them to is to actually partake in what you're doing. Rock. Because what happens, eventually they all one by one start looking at him with contempt, looking at him as mad, start saying bad things about him over and over. They were inviting. It invites. It's why when someone starts to when a bully starts to speak, other people start to join in. It's not right. You're devaluing a human. You're saying you're not worth it. This is like the word nerd. So many different versions. But yes, it's anything you say to show the crowd we are better than you. You're just stupid. Like, it's just those kind of phrases, right? Raca. And so that's on the outside, right? And what that really does is a place of devaluing people again, and you break a social bond there, right? And what is the penalty, right? The penalty for Raca, it says, is that you will, let's read it. It says that you will receive judgment by the council, right? Liable to the council. Liable to the council. Why? Because Raca is a sin of the people. Like, we say it together, we're out loud, we are speaking it out, it's in front of people, you're belittling somebody in front of people, and now you're liable to being judged in front of people. Interesting. It's not just out of nowhere. Like, Jesus is starting to make a little sense, right? Starting to make a little sense. You are held responsible by the people, by the council. And whoever says, you fool, will be liable to hell. Whoa, that escalated quickly. Woo! Where, you fool? Hell? Yeah, you fool doesn't have quite the same kind of meaning that it has today. It's quite different. Back then, what the Hebrews really heard and the Israelis really heard when they heard this word fool that Jesus was probably using. Fool, from the biblical sense, is malice. It's ill will. It has ill will behind it. It's not like we think of like, oh, you're just stupid. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean you're unwise or uneducated. That's not what it means. Like, Raka kind of means nerd, twerp. Like, oh yeah, you're just a riff rat, street rat. I don't buy that. Like, that's kind of the kind of the Raka. You're a riff rat. You're a little street rat. Like, that's Raka, right? But fool is so much heavier. Because see, when you start to think fool, you got to start thinking, where in the Bible would this word be? Because see, Jesus is constantly quoting the Old Testament. He's constantly talking and alluding back to the Old Testament. For them, that was just the scriptures. It wasn't even the Old Testament. It was the Testament, the scriptures, the covenant, right? And so he's talking Proverb, and that's Proverb chapter 17 and verse 12. It says, let a man meet a she-bear. What? A she-bear. Not just a she-bear, but it says a she-bear robbed of her cubs, like an angry, terrible she-bear, rather than a fool to his folly. You're telling me that Proverbs says it's better to meet a she-bear robbed of her cubs than to be a fool in my folly? Well, if I meet a she-bear robbed of its cubs, the likelihood of my survival are slim. Because fool represents something worse than even death. It's almost as if you're damning them to hell. To brand someone a fool was to curse someone to hell. To curse someone to hell, to the outside of religious activities, unable to come back in. Like, this is like early American, this is Negro, this is not good, this is bad, this is, you can't come in. For more of our postmodern society, this is social canceling, spiritual canceling. This is the scarlet letter, the excommunication of a people, of a group, of a person. This is damning them to hell. So the penalty of a person saying, you're a fool, get out of here, can't even be part of our religious festivals, that person, they demand separation even from the kingdom of God. So therefore, their punishment is separation even from the abundant life, the kingdom of God. So what do all these have in common? Anger, insult, saying you fool. It's literally devaluing people. You see, if you truly love your neighbor, then you cannot hold contempt against them that long in your heart. If you truly love your neighbor, then you can't continually speak insults against them. If you truly love your neighbor, you cannot damn them to hell. See, righteousness is about right relationships with who? With God and then with man. But I love how Jesus does it, because he doesn't just leave it there. Like, he's not just like, okay, this is it. Like, this is it. Just don't make sure this is hard. And he starts to give even more practical examples of how to do this, how to change this, how to, this is a sin cycle. This is something we see in the world over since Cain, over and over and over. It's a cycle. And Jesus is like, I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to continue on with some practical ways you can actually change the cycle, right? And so what does he say in Matthew chapter 5 and verse, as we continue to read verse 23 of Matthew chapter 5. So if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard and you be put in prison. Truly, I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penalty. What is Jesus saying here? Well, do you see it though? Who is Jesus talking to? Maybe a better question than what's he saying? Who is he talking to? He's talking to the one holding the grudge? No. He's talking to the one who wronged the person. Look at it. If you're giving a gift at the altar and you realize your brother has something against you, if you're on your way to court to be sued or whatnot by this homeboy over here, it means you did something wrong. Make it right. Because he says if you don't, the judge will hand you over to the guard and then the guard to the prison. And you're going to be there until every last penny is paid back. In other words, you did it. Jesus is talking to the wrongdoer here, not the righteous person, the wrongdoer. This is really interesting, guys. You got to look at this. This is really interesting. How you handle conflict. How do you handle it? How do you handle when you are the one that has wronged someone, go and make peace. You go into the conflict, you look conflict in the eye, and you make peace. Blessed are the peacemakers. You want the abundant life? It's not necessarily found at the altar where you sacrifice to God. It's found at the place of a self-sacrifice of pride to go ask forgiveness. And then we have this one of the most overquoted, misquoted Bible verses, maybe of all Christendom. And it's, this idea, where two or three gather, I am in the midst of them. And whatever they ask, they will receive. And it's the words of Jesus, good words, but the context of that scripture is relationship reconciliation. It's when someone has sinned against someone else and you are going before two or three to make amends. You're bringing people along, and if they agree to the amends, if there's forgiveness, if there's reconciliation, Jesus saying, my presence, God's presence is there. And whatever you agree on, it. Because I'm in the midst of that. It's worship. That's worship. Not just agreeing that you're all going to be wealthy. See, his presence is for those who seek forgiveness, sacrificing pride, removing anger. Leave the lifted hands and singing of Brandon Lake songs to go repair relationships. Leave the lifted hands and singing of Brandon Lake songs to go and repair relationships. That's worship. That's the kingdom of heaven infiltrating the earth. The law is not just about what do not do. It's not just do nots, right? The law is not just do nots. The law is go and do. Go and be reconciled. Go and reconcile. Go and make. The law is more than just do not. It is a go and do. See, love is a verb. It is not an anti-verb, right? Love is a verb. We're like, yeah, the kingdom of heaven. We're like, yeah, the commandments. They're all summed up in just 2 lines. Love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love is a verb. It means go and do. Doesn't mean do not. It means go and do. So how does do not murder look like in everyday life today? Leave the worship service. Leave the worship service to go reconcile with your brother and sister. If you're being sued, try and make peace on your way. Continue to make peace. If someone is, and we're going to talk later about divorce and about these things, but these things are happening, go and make peace. Love them, love people through them, through their, don't be the one to be stuck in pride, to refuse to ask for forgiveness, refuse to be cordial with people. Don't be that. You can't be in the kingdom of God and refuse to be cordial with people. Refuse. I'm not saying you can't make mistakes. I'm saying you can't refuse to be. This is how you do not murder in today's world. That's what Jesus said. That's how you fulfill the law. That's how you be the salt and the light. That's how you get #blessed. Do you see? It's all tied together. It's long and amazing and insane, but insane because we can't comprehend it. Not insane because it's insane. Amazing, incredible concepts that Jesus are talking about, and it's all connected. You want to be blessed. You want to be the salt. You want to be the light. You want to make sure you fulfill the law and you don't abolish it. Then you leave the gift on the altar and go be reconciled with you. Then you, as you're being sued, you go and you make amends. You do your best. You do those things. Man, I hope that this episode, this teaching really challenges you. It challenges me, but I also hope it encourages you, because it encourages me. Because, man, what a world we'd be in if we all reconciled quick. If we didn't hold on to anger in our hearts, malice and contempt for others. If we didn't speak those words, if we didn't speak out hatred and social words that will cancel people. But if we reconciled relationships, if we sought truth together and found him, Jesus. And we're going to dive into some more practical ways on how to do that throughout the next portion, from lust and divorce and oaths and loving your enemies. Those moments of this sermon, we're going to dive into those. But I want to leave you with this thought. If do not murder means a little more, is lived out by forgiving and asking and seeking forgiveness. What about do not lie, commit adultery? What about there's only one God? What about those other axioms? Those are the truths of the world. How are they lived out? Maybe we'll learn about some. Maybe Jesus is leaving in some of them open for us to search the scriptures, to seek it out, to find the stories that show it. See, Cain opens up we have sin enter the world through Adam and Eve. And Cain shows us where anger and contempt and malice can take you to murder. And then Joseph at the end of Genesis shows us where forgiveness can take you. Forgiving those who, in Jesus' words, lean into the heart of murder toward him, forgiving those. And what happened? Then Israel was reconciled with his lost son. It's a beautiful moment in the scriptures. So beautiful, because Joseph was living in the kingdom of God and decided, even though he's in the middle of empire and Pharaoh, he decided, I'm going to live like in this moment. I'm going to be the salt and the light in this moment. And there's moments where he keeps breaking because he's holding on, trying to be like empire and trying to connive, but he's not that person. And in him, he knows he wants reconciliation. And his brothers who do the wrong essentially start to ask forgiveness and realize, and they show that they made mistakes, and their pride crumbles. And in that, his pride crumbles, and beautiful story. Beautiful story, but it's a beautiful truth beyond the story of what pride falling and asking for reconciliation will do in your life. So I don't know who you know that you need to be reconciled to, but God does, and he's putting them on your heart right now. And I pray that you do. Pray that you do. So let's pray now as we end all of our episodes. May the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you, and give you peace. Shalom.
Thanks for embarking on this podcast journey with us at Hyperlink. Your support means the world to us as a listener-supported podcast. If you've enjoyed our episodes and would like to contribute, please consider visiting patreon.com/hyperlinkpodcast. Stay connected with us by joining our community on Facebook at Hyperlink, a podcast journey. If you have any questions or would like to book us for an event, please feel free to email us at hyperlinknigel@gmail.com. Thank you once again for tuning in and being a part of the Hyperlink Collective. See you on the next episode.